So I need to say something about these Rico charges with this Carr guy, he's the Attorney General in Atlanta in America, and basically I've kind of fallen a bit behind with Stop Cop City. I was really interested in Stop Cop City. I was like going on all the groups and listening to what's happening, and I kind of like supported it and in quite a few different ways. And then there was a couple of issues and troubles on the groups. People were, I don't know, I guess this was before I kind of started following Stop ULEZ in England, and that's become huge now. It's probably as big as the Stop Cop City. It might even be a little bit bigger than Stop Cop City, to be honest. But what's happened is now seeing what's going on with this Stop ULEZ and how it's operating, I can see how the Stop Cop City was working. There's a lot of separate different groups of people, so they don't always necessarily get on with each other anyway, even though they're in favour of, opposing the Stop Cop City. But the thing is that the Stop Cop City campaigners did everything legitimately by the book. It actually was a petition for a referendum, and they did it lawfully. And then the council scammed them and then tried to do all these legal proceedings and just cheat them out of the democratic process, which is really what Drakeford's doing in Wales with this 20 mile an hour thing, and what's happening, with the Darwin Oak in Shropshire as well. And really, in our local area, we're just protecting a few trees. They're just denying the democratic process, and also they've covered it up and undermined it. Now, the thing with Atlanta is this. So I was following all the groups, and then I kind of stopped I stopped checking them. I need to catch up with what's going on, and then I did occasionally check them, but they've got a group for the legal things that are going on with this Carr guy and these Rico charges and all the other charges against the petitions and things like that. It's quite interesting though, because they've got people who go to the council and speak when they go to council meetings, and I think it was in Colorado. They got this girl, and she was swearing, and they were basically saying that that like even the council can't stop her from swearing and can't censor her speech when she's there. So they're actually enforcing the constitutional rights when they know you're officially doing it for that purpose. You can actually swear and do what you want. But it seems like they're less recognising it when you're on the streets, but you're still doing something for a petition or democratic process. So, so I need to catch up with Stop Cop City and find out what's going on. To be honest, if there hadn't been trouble in the groups, I probably would have checked it. But to be honest, I'm even finding it difficult to keep up with all the Stop ULEZ at the moment or other things, because there's so many different things happening. And even I can't even keep up with all the YouTube channels now. There are so many channels and Facebook. People are wanting people to get WhatsApp or TikTok, and it's just too much. There's too many things. You can't keep up with it all. There's just not enough time. The thing is, what I needed to make a little update and a little record is this. I know that they've started a legal group for some of the Stop Cop City things to discuss the legal aspects, which is what I kind of wanted before. I was complaining that there wasn't a group for us to check the legal side, and then they've gone and done it now when I kind of I kind of got a little bit fed up with it and sort of couldn't be bothered checking it, and now they've gone and got a legal group. So I'm a bit annoyed, but I know so far as it's going that there are a few. So basically, this Carr guy, this Attorney General, he's one of these guys very, very high up in government who is doing loads of maverick, crazy things that you can't actually do that are illegal, yet he's claiming that we're breaking the law. He's just kind of like a complete wild card guy. So I can only really compare him to Max Hill, the leader of the Crown Prosecution Service, which is only really a step down from Attorney General anyway. So we know Max Hill, the Chief Crown Prosecutor, the head of the Crown Prosecution Service of all England, he directed the prosecution service to, even though Angela Ditchfield had been acquitted, he directed them to take her to the High Court after she'd been acquitted in the magistrates. They didn't take her to the Crown Court. I know the jury probably would have acquitted her again after she'd been acquitted by the magistrate. They would have wanted to know why the Crown Prosecutor was in the, if it had been in the Crown, if that case would have been in the Crown Court and the jury would have acquitted her in the interest of the public, then how could the CPS have gone against that? It would have been very, very interesting. But apparently the CPS can, go to get things overturned if they want to. But I can't see how you would do it from a jury. I don't get how they didn't have to go through the procedure like everyone else, to appeal to Crown and then to High Court. But anyway, they went to the High Court and they got her convicted. But the thing is, they got convicted of criminal damage when it's never seen criminal damage. It's the defacement of a surface. And those offences are explicitly explained and outlined in great detail in the Town and Country Planning Act. And, there's nothing that says that the police can use any enactment when they're prosecuting. Not in that act anyway. So, I don't know where they get this creative licence from, because, there are a set of offences for defacement. But if it's for political, then you're starting to bring rights into it. And the thing about the Town and Country Planning Act is that it makes the use of the rights and how it's used and what class it is very, very clear. It leaves no room for guessing, and it explains that you're getting consent automatically through the law, and you're even not liable for danger or damage or anything that is at risk after you remove it and things like that as well. You're also exempt from liabilities. So it explains it all quite clearly how the right applies. What right it's going to be that you use. The police can use it as well, I suppose, like if you want to put witness appeals up or whatever, things like that. So, the only thing is that when you use it for elections and referendums, which is a process that you have obtained through free petitioning, then there's actually more restrictions once you get a referendum than when you're trying to get one, because once you've obtained it, then it's going to be run by the authorities in a manner which is meant to be fair and paid for by the taxpayer. When you're trying to get a referendum or trying to get an election or trying to get a public inquiry, the burden is on you to collect the evidence and to collect the signatures in order to obtain it. Once you've obtained said referendum or elections, then the burden is no longer on you. It will all be facilitated by the government, which is why then everything has to be done measured and equal, and to do with, obviously some political parties have got more sponsorship than other people, but there are more regulations. You've got more freedom and immunity and protection when you're trying to get it, because you're a member of the public bringing a case to try get it officially done by the government, if you see what I mean. So it's all on you. So you see, the police have got a lot of protections and immunities in law, and special enactments and so forth. Probably the police might be able to do more things than a candidate in an election. Although the thing is with candidates in elections, there's special procedure. We'll get into that in a minute, and that's the fact that if there's any offences or crimes that occur in connection with those petitions when it's for parliamentary election to the House of Commons, then you can only be prosecuted through the High Court, not through the local courts, magistrates' court, and so forth. And so that kind of figures into this whole Chris Carr thing, because these Rico charges are quite serious charges as well in America, and I think they're brought through a higher court level. They're not just brought through the normal criminal court. I think Chris Carr's bringing them through a higher court level. The courts in America work a little bit different, because you've got federal and local courts, and then how you can appeal points of law and things like that, not just like the sentence or conviction in America officially as well. But so anyway, so Max Hill, he basically ignores this law. So Max Hill, he's meant to be the most qualified Crown prosecutor in England, and he doesn't know that the Town and Country Planning Act is the act that Angela Ditchfield would have been using to put political signs and notices or paint them, and he completely ignores it. Two acts of law. The one that defines what an advertisement even is, the 1990 Town and Country Planning Act even defines what an advert is. The word, sign, letter, references to adverts, legal representation, that even defines what you're doing. So I don't know, you see, you're using a Criminal Damage Act, which doesn't even, you see, the Criminal Damage Act doesn't even give any definition as to what you're doing. And they say, oh, well, will the judge, will you not decide, who defines what damage is? The judge decides what damage is, what qualifies for damage or not. Or we prosecuted someone in Cornwall for doing watercolours on the pavement once, we'll decide what damage is or is not. Criminal damage with crayons on the pavement. Well, actually, no, because the definition of an advertisement is in the Town and Country Planning Act. And then in the 2007 one, Statutory Instruments, it explains putting them into effect, putting them into use, placing them, and through what laws and rights and permissions. So I don't know how Max Hill could not know that. There are only two possibilities. A, he didn't know it, therefore it's professional negligence and he wasn't qualified for the job, but he stood down anyway, but not because of that, or not officially because of that. Or he doesn't want to use it, because when you use it, you start to acknowledge definition, and then you start to define that something is actually, in fact, not damage, it's a word, letter, sign, and on the surface of something. And then you can't define it as damage, because it's defined as an advertisement, and then it's not damage anymore, is it? Because it's got a name and it's got a definition in law, and it's called an advertisement. So how can it be defined as a damage? It can't. So this is why they don't like that act, particularly the police. The councillors sort of know that act and don't know it, but they mainly only are bothered with it when they're doing elections, which are, they always get permission and acknowledge their permissions, and there are some sort of controls which they have restrictions on themselves. So they automatically think that everyone who's doing petitions under Class F have similar restrictions, and they start telling people to take things down from the M32, like banners, like what Dr. Tess Leary is putting up for a World Health Organization petition, when, it's illegal canvassing by the council, stealing signatures, so then she can't get the consultation or referendum or public vote on it, which would oust the council's decision. So it's all illegal canvassing by these political parties and the police. So you've got this stubbornness, well, it's criminal. You've got this, the defrauding the public out of their rights. It's subverting the liberties of the realm. So Max Hill is the criminal. He could have been separated at birth from the Met Police Chief, Rowley. They're like, two peas in a pod. The likeness is so uncanny that it's near unbelievable. It's like Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men. I mean, a chief police of, the Met Police and the chief Crown prosecutor, it's like spitting image. It's like, but they both look like, the first two people, criminal, I'm looking for a criminal locksmith. Does anyone know a criminal embezzler or a locksmith? Have anybody got any photographs of him? Oh, look, there's a couple of mug shots here. Oh, look, it looks like the locksmith brothers. Look, it's the embezzling, it's the lock pickers, the professional skeleton key makers. Max Hill and Mark Rowley. There's a mugshot pair for you if you ever saw some. It's like some sort of ladybird book, isn't it? The enormous, the giant pancake or something, or, the shoemaker or the child catcher, the locksmith brothers, it's Mark Rowley and Max Hill, the criminal masterminds, Lex Luthor, the criminal mastermind. Oh, he's in the police job. This is it. So, yeah, Max Hill. So he's the closest we've got really to this Chris Carr guy, who is actually a step up from Chief Crown Prosecutor. He's actually Attorney General, so which also known as Solicitor General. So he's like a maverick, like Max Hill. He ignores law. He doesn't understand a lot of law, and he thinks he's Superman. He's coming out with all this, complete tosh charges, right? Firstly, well, they're meant to have knocked out some more legislation, but again, political matters and political endeavours are not business, and they can't be construed as business. Now, I'll get into the part now where Carr's charges come in. So Carr's charging some of these Stop Cop City protesters, and he's claiming he's charging them under racketeering, right, which is wide organised crime. Now, that is firstly ironic and ridiculous joke because, way back in 2015, on my website, on my evidence, I conjured up this term called bracketeering, which was based around racketeering, but it's specialist racketeering and illegal road signs. And I actually drew quite a lot of attention to this bracketeering. You never really hear much about racketeering as a charge. So it's ironic that his name's Carr, that's like you drive a car, and he's coming out with these racketeering charges, and it's to do with these people who are doing petitions. I mean, you couldn't chuck a stone across a river and get it to skip 3 times as close to those 3 coincidences all combining together. Chris Carr with citizens doing petitions and racketeering charges. It's almost like, it's uncanny. So, anyway, so what he's accusing these Stop Cop City protesters of doing is he's claiming they were collecting money for the campaigns and claiming it was for the campaigns, but they didn't use the money for the campaigns. They used it for themselves or for other stuff. So he's saying that, they were defrauding the public. He's also claiming that they're using terrorism, and then he's throwing a load of criminal damage charges in it and saying it's all organised between groups of people. Now, this is the thing. At least in England and under, Magna Carta Institute law, firstly, so when it comes down to the tax, so I found out that loads of people have been doing criminal things with the tax, and not just the odd little protester. I found out that widespread misinformation by the government and failure of the taxman to keep an eye on businesses and properly monitor them has ended up with charities and political bodies, all Group 9 bodies that aren't big enough to be required to be corporate bodies or registered with government. You can have corporate bodies or non-corporate bodies, small bodies, which aren't required to file with government. So I found out that they've been misleading people as to what they can call. Well, basically, they've concealed, hidden, and effectively erased the ban, the non-registered bodies, the small bodies, the little bodies and groups of people and charities that don't need to file. But they also are Group 9 bodies still, and they need to get goods to promote their charities and so forth, and advertisements like handbills and stuff. So Now, handbills and flyers are recognised widely as being tax exempt, and newspapers when you buy them, but apparently not when you're advertising them, even though you're just paying for advertisements being printed in them. So, figure that one out. And what I've discovered is that, well, we know all these big companies have been bought out by BlackRock and Vanguard, and they've all been bought out by other companies, and they're all basically operating on the same, the newspapers have got their own framework, regime, rules that all the newspapers, Trinity Mirror own loads of newspapers. What they've effectively done is, we used to have free advertisements for petitions because it's non-profit. They used to offer one free advertisement for non-profits and for lost property, particularly in smaller newspapers, and they've sort of ditched it. But there is an argument for a legal right to it. And then there's a legal requirement to publish when you're using that Town and Country Planning Act, also that Angela Ditchfield was using, but not recognised for using. They are, so you're using Standing Orders 145A of Parliament to enforce your advertisements because you're asking for witnesses to come forward, and Parliament are giving directions for you to share it through any mean in any form, in any form and by any means, and that includes electronic mail, email, platforms, telephone, in the post or whatever. So if any of those services are denying service to you, then you need enforcement, and you're supposed to get that from a court when you've got a court case. But luckily for us, when we're doing a petition to the government, it is a case, and they have got powers for enforcement, which they rarely choose to use. They only bother using them if they've got to call witnesses when they want to see witnesses, or if they have to compel documents that they want to compel. But remember, you're the person bringing the case. So in a way, if the 11 members of the Petitions Committee are the only people who bother to serve documents on people using 145A3 powers, it's almost kind of like, it's sort of like, can you imagine if you submitted a case to court and then you just didn't bother turning up at all, or even give directions, and neither did the prosecutor, and then the judge and the legal advisor and the clerk did it all themselves? Take it from there, including, all the rest of it. And even if there was any further, an investigation to do, we don't need they don't need anyone. The judge and the legal advisor can handle this. We don't need anybody. Who's directing it? So, I mean, in every case, you've got a claimant or a plaintiff who brought the case, and they're usually the one who directs it with case management from the representatives. And then but you've also got an opposition, like the Crown Prosecutor. Well, you have an opposition in Petitions Committee. Unfortunately, half of the Petitions Committee board are your opposition because they're all in the Labour Party or Tories, except Martin Day MP, who is SNP. So, it's in a way, it's like going to court and submitting a case, and then when you go in there, it's kind of a little bit like the Crown Prosecutor or the Crown Prosecution Service are the one, is the judge and legal advisor. And, some of them are your opposition. And they're the ones who you're saying, oh, can I get this form signed off, or that one, or this? No wonder you can't get the petitions published in the first place, some of them. It's not like, oh, I'm an impartial judge, and he's an impartial legal advisor, and he's an impartial clerk. We're not here to prosecute you, but, I will make the order if necessary. But, the Crown Prosecutor is the one bringing the case, where I'm just here to hear the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. This is it. So it's a very ridiculous situation in the Petitions Committee, which is why government is corrupt, and really why the whole thing's caved now, because, Drakeford with his referendum, and the Irish government with their consultations, and, our council with the ripping the trees out. So we're we've been conned. I mean, this wouldn't have happened, in the Long Parliament with John Pym, who, wives petitioned for the release of their husbands, from prison to the House of Commons. I mean, this wouldn't have happened in the Long Parliament with John Pym. That is, if he hadn't been poisoned, by the king, or Bedford been poisoned by the king with God knows what, smallpox or whatever. This is the thing now. What we're facing, with George Galloway in the by-election, and mysteriously, MPs dropping dead, or Steve Wright or whatever. Nothing's changed, has it, since 1640s? We've still got, as John Pym and Bedford, the major opposition of the king, seem to have popped their clogs. How could that have happened? I hope no one's been to the hospital and, been dipping the rags in the smallpox, in the strong, here's a strong smallpox sample, all right, dropping it in Bedford's bed, and is mysteriously getting ill. This is like people who are on, Dr. John Campbell, popping up in funeral parlours, having strange clots pulled out of the veins that can only be caused by a special combination of vaccine with this stuff that they've been injecting in the old people's home. It's like Columbo or something, isn't it? It couldn't be more strategically planned. If you could think of a strategic plan, that would be it. If you were intent on, getting rid of these people. So there's some crazy stuff going on. But anyway, try to get back to Carr. I'm getting back to Carr now from this. So yeah, the taxes. So they've scammed us with the tax on all of the non-corporate, political and charitable purchase of goods. So they've got a tax scam going, all the big companies. Some of them, most of them don't know because they've been misled and misguided. So they're not giving us a tax. They're refusing to give us the tax, the VAT exemption, and also the newspapers as well. And also, some of them are refusing service when it's meant to be something that's enforceable. It's an enforceable service because you're compelled through, you're appealing to witnesses for petitions. So Carr's doing these charges against these Stop Cop City people in America, and he's claiming that they're all, collecting money. But the thing is, if you read, so really, that's nothing. I mean, that's not racketeering. That's literally something and nothing. It's almost like joke. It's like, a couple of kids with a lemonade stand. Chris Carr, this Attorney General in Atlanta, is pulling all this serious, big gun stuff out, with a couple of Stop City protesters, a couple of bit of money collecting or whatever. When there's an entire Department of Revenue and Customs and corporate partners, business networks, who have been conspiring to charge tax illegally, extort tax money out of people for tax-exempt items, some of which are political, including YouTube and Facebook, where instead of monetizing those small political campaigns in an exempt class so they could flourish and grow into bigger political campaigns and bigger charities, they were demonetized. Kind of like what's happened to Russell Brand, but worse, because they're meant to be good causes that are opposing these big parties. So that's got to be a conspiracy. And the conspiracy is to deprive small charities out of possibly becoming big charities or big political organisations that could fairly oppose government without, registering. Obviously, how do you get to the stage where you need to register when you've done really well and then you increase from, £500 a year to £35,000 a year, and then or $500 or whatever is $5,000 up to $35,000, and then you have got to register. So if how do you grow? Well, if you're doing well, like on YouTube, by monetizing or by whatever. So it really is. It's almost like they're pouring poison on the seeds. That all these small political causes and charitable causes, they're poisoning them, so they've got no chance, which is kind of like what they've been doing with the bread and the McDonald's, but we'll get into that later. So Chris Carr, the joke is that Chris Carr is bringing these, now he was trying to pass them off as really serious criminal charges, like really, this is America, this is Texas, everything's big over here, Rico charges, big charges, Stop Cop City, this is a big police station. This is a big, big, big serious matter, right? When it's a couple of protesters knocking around, smashing a few windows or whatever, right? Yet when the entire Facebook, Amazon, iTunes, global network have been undermining and discriminating against charitable bodies and political bodies and educational and religious bodies, startups, and refusing to monetize them, and all the industry that supplies the goods, particularly advertisements and stickers, handbills, have been refusing to take the tax off. So you really don't get more for your money. And that is pretty much the entire corporate sector. Now, if Chris Carr wants to put he's welcome to, there are jokers and jokers. It's like Peaky Blinders. There are mavericks and mavericks, but this guy is joke, right? Because he's going after these, Stop Cop City protesters who go around, like little girl guides, go around, collect signatures, organise, go around the streets, ask people politely. It's like some sort of scene from Karate Kid, when Daniel LaRusso goes to the mall and meets that, girl, whatever she's called, and they go bowling. It's almost like that. Oh, Stop Cop City fans, we're going to go canvassing. We're going to go canvassing at the mall. Going to go canvassing at the bowling. Going to go canvassing at the carnival or whatever. It's like some sort of Daniel LaRusso sort of scene, isn't it, or something. But oh no, it's now we've got Chris Carr with these bad boy police guys. It's like the what do you call it? Cobra Kai. Big bad Chris Carr is Cobra Kai. This is it. It's just ridiculous. So, there's always a real racketeering thing going on here, like a conspiracy against small Group 9 entities. What? There's a conspiracy to defraud tax from small Group 9 bodies? What? Like Stop Cop City? Now we've got some racketeering going on, haven't we now, Chris? Oh, let's get the real criminals on the table. This is it now, Chris. This is your big chance. Now let's get the real criminals out. Oh, the real ones who've been dodging the tax. But the worst thing is that if you actually go onto IRS and if you actually read it, right, you don't, because if the Stop Cop City people have been doing under $5,000 or at least under something like $35,000 or $25,000, they didn't have to tell the government what they were doing, and they didn't have to file with them or apply for recognition as a non-profit. And further to that, even if you're a non-profit or a political cause, you're allowed to use a certain percentage of it for non-profit causes anyway, and for non-profit things. It says, if you read it in detail, You can, if you go on IRS and look at all the non-profits and charitable things, because this is what these non-profits do that all these mysterious donors are donating to, and we're not allowed to be disclosed with who's donating to them, all these science labs that are non-profit and so forth, they're allowed to use a certain amount of their funding on business. Even though it's a charity, they're allowed to use certain amounts of the money on business and so forth. So you don't actually have to use it all on the political campaign. And then even when you're buying things, if you bought clothes and you were wearing those clothes when you were collecting petition signatures, or at least on a number of occasions, or at least 50% of the time, not all the time, you can put that, you can have them down. If you're buying, if those people collected money for Stop Cop City and they just went down to the, to the mall and just went shopping, if they were, buying jacket, free shirts, shoes, T-shirt, if they wore those clothes, at least 50% of the time they were doing the canvassing, then they can put them down. They can put them down for campaign purposes anyway. So I really would like to see how Carr has calculated his charges sheet. I really would like to see how he's figured this tax in for tax fraud, defrauding the public for campaign funds that they gathered from the public, and how they've, spent it all on, going to fucking McDonald's like you've got to eat as well. Oh no, I've got to stay alive, Oh, I'm a body. I'm a political body. I'm a political body, and I've got to eat food. Now I'm doing charitable things, and I'm giving food away. Food in, food out. Oh, I'm a political body, and I've got to eat. And now it's raining. Has anyone got an umbrella? This is it. Small political bodies. So it's kind of joke. Now, fair enough with all those criminal damage charges, but I'm guessing that the American police are. There's likely some sort of con going on with the criminal damage charges as opposed to defacement, although I know that Americans, certain counties are graffiti friendly and other counties are against graffiti and opposed to graffiti, like Texas doesn't allow any graffiti, for example. But when it's for political purposes, it's unlikely that America has much of a different law to that Town and Country Planning Act if it is for political advertisements. They might not have a clause like Class C for painting on surfaces, which you can combine with Class F for the use of an enactment. But I've got a feeling that thinking of the 1800s and 1900s, and early 1920s and 1930s and 1940s and 50s, when they had painted signs everywhere, like on walls, like OXO or, whatever fucking Mars bar or whatever. It's likely that if they had any legislation which facilitated painting on for political messages on walls and buildings in the 1950s to 60s, it's unlikely that they will have made like an amendment, whatever, Amendment 77 or Amendment whatever it is. It's unlikely that they will have made it illegal. I severely doubt it. But the problem is, they gave the federal question powers to the lower courts, and that ended up with a lot of people just trying anything that they fancied through, grievances like copyright claims against people that are using material in political campaigns, pictures and images. But no, people don't usually take people to court over that if they're just some art group or Stop Cop City. It's been big. It's been like Donald Trump or the big parties who have used material that Meatloaf or Neil Young or whatever has had, and they really didn't like that person's political party. And I think one of the mayors or someone used someone's kid's photo. But I think that when it's smaller, they don't take much notice. It doesn't generate that much attention, so they're not going to be as bothered. As like, Donald Trump using some music artist's song or something. When it's smaller, they're not as bothered. So it seems, kind of joke, these RICO charges. Now, when it comes to the criminal damage in England, we're starting to look at, models, signs, installation of models, what classes as a model, because you can have a model on a catwalk, model in a dress, and that's a body. It could be a political body modeling a dress on a catwalk. And you can have like a vehicle could be being used as a model, and you could need to install it in a roundabout. You're allowed to install models, a sign, a model, and so forth. And then you've got straight away with Class F, you've got deemed an express consent, and you're not liable through that Schedule 2 for any danger or risk after the removal of it, or for its installation. So you're pretty much writing off, as long as you can say that it is promoting the campaign and it can be argued into those criteria under advertisement, sign, letter, word, sign, symbol, representation, model, placard. If you can argue it into one of those criteria for recognition, then you've got deemed an express consent for whatever it requires to install it. Even now, as for the broken window, I don't know about that, but I've got a sticker that looks like a broken window, and it is an advertisement. It's a promo sticker that looks like a broken window. So I don't know if you can, if it is a real window, you could be making a model. Rather than there is no legal argument at all, like with Gail Bradbrook, there actually is a legal argument, and it is debatable. Which means that you can represent it under the Town and Country Planning Act, and if it is, once it's agreed that it is such an advertisement, then you've immediately qualified for immunity. All you've got to do is get the court or the jury to agree that it's an advertisement. But once they've agreed to that, then it falls under the immunity. So the Criminal Damage Act is just not. It's just refusing to recognise that this is not damage. It's identified as a promotional advertisement of any shape and form, which is why the police. This is why they don't want to recognise the act. I don't know what act they've got in America that covers the same things, but it can't be that much different. And it'd be funny if they're doing it in England and they won't let them do it in America. But the worst thing is that, the level and extent of organisation for the tax crime is so serious and organised, and they're meant to have tax people going around from government who are meant to be checking up on it, watching, but they don't seem to be bothered if, you're collecting too much tax from people when you shouldn't be, only if you're not paying enough. So it's rather ridiculous. So that's where I am with this Carr thing now. This is where I am with this Chris Carr thing. I don't know how far they are with it, but I noticed they got a group to discuss the legal aspect of it, and this is just when I've been learning a lot more that could really help them out. But, I've had other things to concentrate on, other groups, and also, I kind of got a bit miffed off with some of the Stop Cop City people, and I didn't bother going back on. No, I can go back on if I want, but I just kind of left it, and there's so many messages behind now. I did catch up with one or two things. I think they put a song out, but also they've put a song out under Stop You Les as well. So I really want to see how they're going with it. They must have progressed with it now, but to be honest, at this stage, I don't really know what to do or say, because it must be joke. I mean, Carr is a wild card maverick for sure. He's got to be in professional negligence at least, and if, these digital communications through it's through the Value Added Tax Act 1994. The word political only appears twice in the Act. The word political appears under the digital services and under the Group 9 exempt bodies. And under the digital services, we're not meant to pay tax if you're a body. Political bodies don't pay tax. No matter if you're corporate body or just a non-corporate body. All that means is that you're not big enough to need to be required to file with government, but you're a body. So, YouTube, what annoys me with YouTube is that, they write up, Universal Studios and Warner Brothers, yes, no free bags full, Warner Brothers, yes, we'll revolutionise our platform, Warner Brothers, yes, we'll collect, we'll collect money on people using your copyright, we'll scan everyone's channels, and by the way, have immunity, you can have immunity as a third party as well, you're not liable for any of these claims, but it's all for Warner Brothers and, it's not for us. No, we're not doing this for us. We're not doing it for YouTube. We're doing it for Warner Brothers and for Universal Studios. It's all for them. These big corporate entities on our platform, got to make sure that we get the law right for them, so they can collect their money, ka-ching, 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 but what about those little Group 9 bodies, they have to pay tax. Oh, that'd be quite nice, wouldn't it? Earn some revenue on YouTube, but we'll have to pay tax on it. That'll really grow our small charity or political body into a big one overnight, and then we can register. Then we'll need to register because we're pulling in £25,000 a year from YouTube. Then we'll have to register, and we can be a big one. Then, won't that be nice? Then we can register with Chris Carr for breakfast. This is it. But no, we can't do that because then we might pose some challenge. Pose some opposition to Labour or Tories. Oh, just a minute. And all these independent political organisations getting booted off anyway and not getting their political casework status recognised with the White House or Parliament. That's funny. Where's Jordan Peterson gone? Just a minute. Is this organised? Is this organised? Is this organised? So, Chris Carr is, he claims to be a guy who's, serious badass, big Texas hat,